back to my original point before we got into the language thing, I was going to ask you. We'd had a prior encounter on here, and we were discussing our stances in a relatively, I would say, adult manner. I mean, we clearly are on different spectrums of the belief of abortion and whatnot, and I appreciate you having a candid conversation in a way that's not too aggressive. I mean, you called me an old man, and I called you a youngster, so
Well,
we're
it's an observation based on
right.
fact.
So I
Don't get offended over it. You're
Um,
good.
I again, it's all in perception. Old is one thing. I mean, when I look at myself as old, I don't see myself as old, but I could see how someone half my age could see me as old. So I can understand that, and I'm not too naive to accept that. So whatever, that's fine.
There you
So
go.
can I ask you again, to clarify your stance? I know you find it funny now, but I just want to know. So you were saying last time we talked, I was saying that I believe that people who have sex should do it in a manner that is responsible, and if they conceive, they should then be accountable for the baby or the life they created.
Well, I
And
agree with the first part, not the
okay,
second part.
okay. And then your response to me was, I think you said something about to achieve an orgasm, uh, you support the termination of life after orgasm if that's what happened because of your sexual encounter, right?
So the thing about that has to do with contraceptives, and I think a lot of the value that sex has is not put into the fact that you have to have a child, right? So you, by what I recall, when I asked you if you think that when people have sex, they should get pregnant, right? You said yes, right? So to me, right, you do not believe that people can have sex without a child.
No, I believe that people can if they do it appropriately. That's why I talked about ovulation cycle and pull out and using condoms and just using
But
other
the
forms
pullout,
of abstinence.
you told me, right, that I don't want to say your personal
Yeah,
stuff,
you're
but
fine. You're fine.
that some people do the pullout method. But the thing about that is that in some way I could say you're irresponsible because that's not 100% effective, is
Well,
it?
I have two kids because of my methodology, so
So
it's not
so it
perfect.
didn't so
You know what
it's
I'm
not so
saying?
you didn't go 10 years without.
No, and so that's the thing, though, is but my wife and I also understood that as a couple together, that if we were having that, we were willing to go forward with that. That's all.
So then that wasn't
Yeah.
so then you were doing it with the acceptance that you wanted a kid, but some people don't do that.
But that's what sex is, and that's kind of what I was saying earlier when you called me old, is I
Right,
said
but I
my
believe.
generation believed that when you involved yourself in an intimate moment with another human being and engaged in sexual activities, you were already agreeing on the decision that you two would accept the consequences or whatever comes from that sexual encounter. So, like,
But the difference between you
yeah,
and I is that I don't believe a child is a consequence, right? I think a child is a privilege, right? So when people have kids, right, it should be seen as a gift and something that's wanted, right? There are cases where people don't want a pregnancy initially, get pregnant, and then they realize they want to keep it, which is completely fine, whatever, right? But some people genuinely don't want to have kids, right? But I don't think that they shouldn't have sex or should feel like they're gonna have a kid even though they use contraceptives, because then what the fuck is the point of the contraceptives in the first place and going through all that effort of trying not to get pregnant? What is the point? You know what I mean? And I feel like if somebody doesn't want to have a kid, right, they have the 100% right to use a condom. And in the very small percentage case, right, rare case where they do get pregnant, right, and they don't want to have the baby, why the fuck would I force somebody to have a baby if they use contraceptives? That clearly shows, right, that they didn't want the baby in the first place. And I feel like it's weird to be like, no, 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 you have to have a baby.
okay, all right.
Do you know what I mean? Like,
Well, I'll tell you from my perspective, I try to put myself in the position of being able to understand someone from their perspective, to allow myself to put myself in someone else's shoes, to try to view it from that person's perspective. But where I am in my lifetime now, I've had, I guess, just another 14 years of life. I guess I just really appreciate life a lot more now that I'm older and I experienced coming home from work and my wife was pregnant with a child in in her stomach, and knowing that it responds to stimulus and it responds to my voice. So like for me, I guess I really struggle with how we consider life on Mars like a little bacteria, but we don't consider like a heartbeat or
No, a
brain.
heartbeat, this is the thing,
Yeah.
like a fetus, right? To me, I understand that life starts at conception, right? And
Yeah.
that it is a human being. Some people who are very like stuck in their ways, right? Say that it's a clump of cells, whatever. To me, at the end of the day, the vocabulary doesn't matter. Whether you say it's a clump of cells or a gift from God or a human being or a fetus, it's all the same shit at the end of the day, regardless of the emotion you want to put to it, right? So if I'm just gonna say it's a fetus, right? Just because it's the most neutral term that I can like say, right? But the thing about that is like when people say life on Mars and that shit, like I understand it's a life, right? And I understand it's human, right? And it's sad, right? But there's a fucking bigger picture, and every moral judgment has some consequences to a degree that somebody opposing you would say that, oh, that's not right, even though it is right to me. Because you look at the bigger picture, right? Let's say you have somebody, right, that pulls a lever and the train runs over 3 people. That person needs to go to jail, right? Because what the fuck, they killed 3 people. That is so sad. Let's all cry about it, right? But wait, there's a bigger picture. Because he pulled the lever, the train avoided killing 500 people. There's a bigger picture. Yes, the 3 people is so sad, whatever the fuck, but there's a bigger picture. In the case of abortion, yes, killing the child, the baby, the clump of cells, fetus, whatever, is sad, right? And I see that people, I'm not going to invalidate someone's feelings. If they want to feel sad about it or pray about it or,
Yeah.
go through like the physical trauma of it, if they're the ones that are pregnant, right? That is fine and that's totally valid, right? But if the person, the mother, doesn't want to be pregnant and doesn't want that inside of her, that I think the most unethical thing ever is to make a country where she has to be pregnant. Do you understand? I don't, and this is the thing, like, especially no hate to men, like, support men, men's rights, whatever,
Yeah.
right? But, like, you do not have a vagina, right? And I'm not saying that you shouldn't have a voice or an opinion or anything, but literally, you physically cannot comprehend the emotional like thing and the connection that a pregnant mom has. Even I can't do that because I've never been pregnant. Do you know what I mean?
That's
And
why
so
I
it's
think
something
it's
very,
very
very,
difficult.
very unique. Like it's not like
Yeah.
some economical theory.
Yeah.
It's not something that anyone can have a voice on. Do you know what I mean?
Well, that's why I think that as a father and someone who's had a child, that I am trying to explain that to you that it is more, and that's why originally I tried to say too that we need to come up with some sort of agreement as a country of what we determine as a what you called a lump of cells or what a Christian would consider a viable fetus. There's got to be some sort of
Or a
middle
gift from
ground
God, a human
middle
being.
ground in terms of it, especially if it's going to be taxpayer funded. So that's kind of what I think the crux of the whole argument is if somebody wants to fund an abortion themselves and they want to go to a state where that's a possibility, that's I think fine with some people. I don't think from my perspective that I would try to pass legislation to prevent someone from going and paying for an abortion on their own. My biggest issue is forcing people with a religious stance that is against abortion and taking their tax dollars and funding things like Planned Parenthood.
Well, but that, see, then that is a problem that you have with government, not with the mother who's getting an abortion,
Right.
right?
Well,
So this
that's
is the
why I'm
thing.
not at a Planned
Maybe
Parenthood protesting women. That's why I don't go and make women feel bad for what they do.
no,
That's,
yeah,
you know,
but this is the thing. Like, if you're talking about taxpayer money, that's a completely separate issue about the ethics of abortion, right? So, like, that would be. But then also, let me speak on that. That's like an economic thing. Your taxpayer money goes to wars. Your taxpayer money goes to homeless people. Your taxpayer money goes to different things that some people wouldn't agree with, right? What about the person, right, who's like really conservative, works like 80 hours a week? Their money goes to people who don't work. What
agree.
about that, right? So it's just
Agree.
like
Yeah.
that's a government issue.
Yeah, I think that it ultimately comes down to the religious factor because, I think we were touching on about violations of religious rights and your civil rights. Because if you're just affecting my everyday life, that's not a violation of my civil rights. Because a human, you can't violate my rights, but the government can. So when the government violates my religious rights, which is that I don't believe in abortion and they take my tax dollars and use it, that's kind of what I was getting at. But I agree. If you don't like your state stance, move. And that's what I've been telling people straight up. If you don't like your
But
stances,
you can also like change that. You
fight,
know what I mean?
run for office, do some stuff, right?
Exactly. Or vote for somebody, whatever.
Okay.
Right. But the thing is, like, I personally don't fucking believe in war. And I feel like a lot of wars that America has been in are unnecessary and have, evil motives.